right, good evening, everyone. We're now ready to call to order our City Council committee as a whole. It's now 6 o'clock, and let's get started. We're gonna start with our invocation. Our Chief of Police, Randall Beach, is gonna bring forth our invocation. As he's coming up, I want us to remember our councilman, Mr. Robert Neely. He's been going through a lot of sickness, and we just want to send him up in prayer also. Chief B.
God of our fathers, how is it that a God who moves the hearts of kings, who charts the paths of the sea, would condescend to us, even in this time, in the mystery of your economy, that you would institute and ordain government to provide the people a plan. As we know, in your own word, where there are no plans, the people perish, they fail. And we commit the minds and hearts of those who govern us now, even in this small place in Pickens, South Carolina, that as they feel the weight of that representation of this community, that weight would turn to a joy, that we would be a people of humble and contrite hearts, that we would be respectful of those who govern in this place, and even tonight in this session, that you would give them that joy and honor and respect that they deserve, that we would look upon them,
yes,
that in this weight, it would move them to know this community and to know it well. And we pray for Councilman Neely tonight, as you are the great physician and can bring healing in all instances, even that ultimate healing as you conquered death, that it is finished. And we pray for him that you would bring healing in his home and in his body to restore him to this council and to this chamber. And I pray that as this court moves tonight, that you would give them wisdom and strength and remind them of the ultimate authority that from which they derive their own, and that is from the throne of God himself. We commit this time to you in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're now getting ready to go with our departmental reports, committee as a whole. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for the good start that we've had with our council in moving in some positive ways. I promise you that you're going to see some good changes. I just love the fact that we are working together. We have one mind, and that we're trying to do what's best for Pickens. I want to thank our department heads who come to us constantly and keep us informed about what's going on. And they have a listening ear, and we're trying to move forward by their lead, because they're the ones that really are on the battlefield. I thank you all. I thank our staff that works the front. I'm able to be here every day, and you just don't know what they have to do and how they do it willingly. It's just a good start and a new start for Pickens. And I'm so excited. Y'all, I can't tell you how excited I am. Can't contain myself. There's gonna be some great things happening. This is our first work session with our new administrator, Mr. Tim O'Brien. We welcome you. We thank you. And he's been on the job 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. He's been here. He's even beat me. And I said, well, I'll try to catch up with you next time.
Sometimes they beat cheap.
Very rarely. Very rarely. If you beat the chief, you're good. But thank you, Chief. Both our chiefs. I really appreciate you. Y'all, we got the best fire department and police department, bar none. I don't care about the size of towns and cities. They can't beat us with the professionalism that we have. And I thank you. I thank our finance director, Mandy, that keeps all of us straight. They're doing that. We can't spend that. And that's just a good thing. I thank the Greater Pickens Chamber of Commerce we're going to be working even more together. And I thank you for your great work that you're doing in this little town. And so now we're going to go further by getting our administration coming forth with finance, utility, work orders, planning, and the courts. Now we're going to turn it over to the city administrator.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
People of Pickens. It's good to be with you this evening. And Mandy and I are going to tag team a little bit on this, but as I have taken up my duties here in Pickens, I've been working a lot the last week on the ABCs of local government.
All right.
The basics, making sure that all the wonderful people that we have here are being used to the best of their ability, but also looking at whatever shortfalls we may have or have been dealing with and how to correct those as quickly as possible. And one of those areas I've been working a lot with Mandy Hess to we know that we're still working to do some catch up on our audits. We've got 22 and 23 to complete, which is going to be a lot of work for Mandy. But we spent some time this past week looking at where we thought we were. She's done a lot of catch-up work on figuring out what we needed to do as far as amending our 2023-24 budget, because there were some issues. A lot of these are related to just obviously the turnover in administrators and what course are we on. So just correcting some of that. And I'm very pleased to say that as we've dug into it, I thought at the first of the week when I started, there was a 50-50 chance that I'd find a big hole that was big and scary, and I would regret taking the job, but the opposite proved to be true. We found that we were in a stronger position than we believed, and that we are going to be able to replenish our fund balance in very important areas so that we have the wherewithal to withstand emergencies and needs that may arise and often do in local government. It is best practices to have funds set aside so that when your city is full of ice storm debris, you can clean it up and wait for the government the federal government to through FEMA to reimburse you. But sometimes that can be a 2-year process, and if you don't have the $1 million to pick it all up, we'll be walking over limbs for quite some time. Like I said on Tuesday, I feared that we wouldn't be able to react because of where we are, but now we know that we will be able to. There's some other things as we've triaged all this. We've learned that we have $150,000. It's in a local savings and loan account that is drawing about 1.8, 1.9% in interest. That's not a best practice for a local community. The state of South Carolina offers safe, liquid investment options at what is called the local government investment pool rate, which they gather all of the counties and cities, put money there, and they invest it for us. The current rate there, we're doing 1.9 in the savings and loan. The December rate for the LGIP was 5.67. So we're going to do a little bit better by gathering our savings and putting it where it earns a few dollars. That LGIP rate obviously is an indexed rate. It goes up and down. When generally the interest rate is lower, it'll be lower. But as we've seen, savings rate have gone up along with the consumer rates that others have been paying. And so that's just some of the things we've been digging into. I've been peppering Mandy with lots and lots of questions and sending emails back and forth. But I'll just read this into the record real quickly, because we do have one of the things that Mandy and I are working on presently is a budget amendment to the 23-24 budget that we will put before council at the next regular meeting, and I just want to introduce that for the record for council and for the citizens. So in reviewing the city's budget reserves and general financial health over the last several weeks, we have identified a significant amount of the 2021 revenue bond issuance in the amount of $5 million remains unspent. You will soon consider a budget amendment that would allocate $1.2 million of those funds as a required local match for our Water System Infrastructure Improvements Grant, SCIP. These funds may be used to reimburse the general fund for capital expenses associated with water, sewer, and stormwater in prior years. This will allow us an opportunity to create much-needed reserve and fund balance accounts to ensure the City of Pickens is financially sound and blessed with sufficient reserves to sustain emergency needs that may arise without undue threat to the general fund. In plain talk, that means any concerns about the city's financial position have been put to rest. Keep in mind that these reserves are truly for a rainy day. I will repeat that. They are for a rainy day, Council. It should be protected and used to fund only emergency situations and very selective, non-recurring deferred projects and expenses. A special opportunity we can consider. As you know, Mandy Hess has been preparing a budget amendment that will come before council at your next meeting. That amendment language and the numbers are not finalized, but the items to be included are the following. The addition of the estimated $5.3 million from the 2021 revenue bond to the FY 2023-2024 budget. An increase in the utility fund transfer by $114,856.55. Redistributed salaries to the correct departments after employee reclassifications. Interdepartmental transfers within the Recreation Department as requested by the Rec Director. Categorized and distributed utility fund expenditures to include the breakdown of CWS contractual obligations, and the addition of the SCIP grant local match expense of $1.2 million to include the use of $300,000 in American Rescue Plan fund balance. So that's the ARPA money that was related to the pandemic. Considering that we have determined the city will be able to achieve sufficient reserves following the transfer and fund balance account creation, I would request that council also consider the following priorities in the amended FY 2023-2024 budget by adding the following. $175,000 to professional services for comprehensive plan update, downtown master plan update, architectural consulting to support downtown revitalization, retail master plan and recruiting to work with and augment merchants and small businesses, planning services, engineering and site planning, compensation and classified study to review city salaries and create advancement/evaluation metrics for our people. And a financial advisor modeling and planning services through First Tryon, who's made a presentation to us and who I've worked extensively with. They really give good guidance on how to manage the fiscal side of the house. And then $65,000 for Doodle Park painting and preservation of the locomotive and train car. I'm not going to rest until that beautiful facility over there doesn't have a rusting carcass sitting next to it. We need to get it painted.
Right.
$10,000 for consulting services to examine the historic water tower and prepare plans and a budget and a schedule for the restoration and painting of that project prior to undertaking a fundraising campaign. I really see that as something that we need to know what the answers are, and then we need to ask the people of Pickens to come in with the city and chip in, and then we're going to make it look really nice.
All right.
And then I want to add a full-time staffer to support customer service and unmet administrative needs of the police department. This would add $51,659 annually, assuming the salary rate is at $17.50 an hour. This includes the salary of $36,400. No overtime is included. And I think it's important to always include the fringe benefits so we know the total cost. The South Carolina Retirement System employer portion would be $6,755. FICA would be $2,784, and the employer portion of the health care would be $57.18 for that total of $51. That includes salary and all of those fringe benefits. So those are my initial requests, and I would say I don't take adding an FTE mid-budget year lightly, but in my evaluation in the couple of weeks that I've watched us before I started and then after I started, we need to do better for our people and for our customers and for our police department. We'll talk more about it later, but I do intend to do cross-training and really do a better job with our administrative staff and helping them out to be successful.
That's great. That is great. Great job. Oh, you got me awed. Thank you so much.
Well, that was easy. All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's go home.
Let's go home. All right. Now we have a utility and work orders. Who's in charge of that? Oh, okay. Okay, they were just listed in our packet as far as the work orders and where they've been done. All right, does anybody have any questions about utility and work orders? While we're looking at that, I want to assure our citizens that by talking with our administrator and Public Works that we're going to step up what we need to be doing on the streets with sanitation, picking up limbs. We're going to not just ask, we're going to demand that it's done. We have been sort of diplomatic and been too long coming that we hadn't had the work done that should be done. And I have an administrator here that's on the job to help make sure that happens. And hopefully in the future we'll have somebody placed in a leadership role with Public Works to make sure that we never get behind like we have before.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do anticipate seeking a position similar to what you described for Public Works to lead that effort. I will tell you that part of the reason that I've been here early in the morning is to interact some with some of our crews and get to know those folks who are doing such important work for the city. I was pleased that this week I think they caught up pretty well on some of the, especially yard waste that needed to be picked up. And I also made the first step, but asked that they, basically a citizen complaint, first day I was here, said it's awfully dark downtown because these street lights are all out. So I got with Duke Power and asked our Public Works guys, since they're out early in the morning when it's dark, to please report to me anytime they see these lights out. I would ask any of our residents, anybody who's watching this tonight, if you see, I'll be glad to do the work and put in the work orders. But Duke Power just emailed me that they have fixed about 6 of the lights that we reported. So again, I'm asking staff to report that up. I'm asking, because that's a safety issue. And safety is one of my most important jobs at this city, is making sure everybody feels safe walking around town.
I love that.
So let me know about those lights and we'll get them fixed.
That's awesome.
On these work orders on the water, is most of this meter problems or a mix on these work orders we got in this package?
Are there any specifically you got a question about? I mean, yeah, there's such a variety of work orders that we deal with. A lot of them do resonate from meter reading problems, but there could be flushing in there.
Leaks.
There could be leaks. There could be minor leaks. There could be breaks. A lot of follow-up. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But and some of it's going to depend on which meter reading cycle we've been in and what problems we've had that month.
When you talk about meter reading problems, are the meters not reading well, or?
There has historically, well, since I've been here over the past year, yeah, there's been some issues with getting the amount of reads that we would like to see from the current radio system. So we went back last July and issued a procurement document to receive bids on redoing that, and I can share some of that as needed. But yeah, sometimes it's just environmental factors. The meter might be underwater, and we have to pump it out, and then it reads. But these meters were rated, the register on top of the meter, it sits on top of the meter body. It's rated for 10 years of battery life, and these were replaced 10 years ago. So we're starting to see those batteries fall off. And so when we go out to read, you should be able to drive by the meters at the speed limit and be able to receive that read. But oftentimes there may be a street with 10 meters and maybe you only get 6 of them, so you have to get out of the truck, pop the lid, read it, then get back in, go to the next one. So it creates a lot more work than it was intended as it was originally designed.
When you have those 6 meters, like you said, it's hard to read all of them with this current system that we have, right?
That's correct.
And you have to get out and read them.
That's correct.
If we updated that system, would you be able to read all those 6 accurately?
So there's 2 different meter reading systems out there right now. There's a drive-by radio read, which seems to be a more economic option. And then a lot of cities are moving towards what's called advanced meter infrastructure. So you could read the meters sitting at a computer. They would hang collectors on a water tower or other infrastructure in the city. You would be able to read on demand. So if a customer called in and said, I need to know what my meter reading is now or what it was yesterday, someone sitting at a desk could pull that data up right away. Now, that's more advanced. It comes with a higher price tag, but those were, there were probably 4 or 5 vendors that bid on that work. We put together all the meter numbers, all the work, and they had given us proposals. I would say they are out of date now, but they would give you a really good ballpark for what options you would have and what the price would be.
Mr. Mayor, just looking into that, and Councilman, we are at the point where we're at the end of life for the meters that we have. That's outdated technology. Again, the ABCs of local government. Don't keep hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. We do have some issues with the quality and the data that's coming back. It's causing people to question both on our staff and out in the public, is this reading correct? Because sometimes they get a bill for 0, then they'll get one for a higher amount. We do have the information that Drew has gathered, and the other advantage of the frankly more expensive but I think more usable system at this point is that, for instance, because the collectors are constantly getting the information, if a pipe burst at your house and the water meter is just rolling and we can set how long it is, but we can call you and go, Mr. Mayor, you've got a leak, because we can see it, and we can go fix it then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a lot of different technologies and sensors that can be integrated with that system, and so, yeah, we'd be happy to support exploring that any further.
Yes, please do, because our people deserve that.
Yes, absolutely.
When you have customers, we ought to be able to be accurate on how we charge for the water.
And with what we've been able to determine so far, we're still waiting on the audits to come back, but for the budget beginning in July, I do plan on, and it's not insignificant, there's 5,000 meters. We've got to replace them all, but this is about $1.3 million, $1.5 million project. But
It's doable.
It's doable, and we're a utility. We owe a debt of service to,
Yes, sir.
Duke Power is not skimping on their meters. They want to know what you owe them and make sure there's no question about it. So we need to make sure we're providing a high level of service there. So we will be trying to make sure that we've got the funds available to do that, and I believe we do.
I'd like to add too, I'm sorry.
No, you go right ahead. I'll ask.
I wanted to add, whenever we always err on the customer side when we're reading meters. So if we have a question, we generally say we charge the minimum, because if we don't know what the meter is reading, we are not going to charge someone, we're not going to pull a number out of thin air. So that, I know sometimes that can be a contentious issue with meter reading, is they think, well, we're just assigning a number. That's not the way that it works. Now, in the field, we have had times where we've thought, okay, we saw this number, and then we saw this number, and we have questions, and then we consult together, and then if we have too many questions, we say we're charging the minimum. And so we just want to reassure everyone of that, but the reality is that has been happening more and more, which hits the city's revenue, and because we can't trust what the meters are putting out a lot of times.
And that is, I'm going to be nice about how I say this.
Be nice.
Yeah, I'm going to be nice. It's well known that we err on the side of the customer. So some customers will give it a try.
Yeah.
Is this right? And then, oh, well, we'll cut it back for you, which you can't blame a guy for trying, or a gal. But we owe it to all of each other who the city owns this utility, every man, woman, and child here. So we need to invest in some technology that will allow us to all agree that when you get your bill, it's right.
Right.
And we're not gonna dicker on price and everything else. We're just gonna send out the bills, and so that those kinds of things, those efficiency questions. I believe there's a saying that you can be a penny wise and pound foolish. So that's what we're going to look at with that.
Great. Because it's very important. I feel that we need to give the best product. If we're going to be in the business, we ought not give anything less but the best.
And on them meters, you hear of everybody's that reads high,
Yes, sir.
but are they also, if the meter's faulty, you hate to say robbing, but they get free water. You see what I'm saying? Will that go both ways?
That's a great point. So generally, when you put a meter in, it starts to, some of the accuracy can go. Now, what I've been told, being at some of these conferences and things and hearing from all the vendors, is that they're always tested and they fail to benefit the customer. So they don't fail to over-register, they fail to under-register. And you use a positive displacement meter. It has moving parts. Over time, as water's flowing through it, those parts degrade and the accuracy degrades a little bit. So when you do a meter change out, generally you're going to see anywhere from an 8 to 10% capture of revenue on that low end that you're losing with accuracy. And that only gets bigger over time. So it's not always, but the low flows are not being captured right now.
We need to make sure everybody's aware of that. There's a chance you've been getting free water for 2 or 3 years. Well,
At least at a discount, yes.
And then the other question I had on the water, on the meters and all, that the proposal you got on prices, does that include the SCADA program to go with the lift stations or not?
No, that does not. So we do have a proposal on that, and we can forward that on. And we really believe there's some good opportunity to get that done pretty quick. It's pretty low hanging fruit, and so we can talk about that. But we have a proposal from a local vendor.
I have a question also. With the federal government wanting us to check for lead pipes, what is the deadline for that?
So an inventory is due in October of 2024, this year. We began to assemble that inventory, and it essentially means anything past 1988, we can take off our list. Anything before, we have to begin to do some work on the ground to verify, either through records or through physical verification. This is one reason why I would be totally in favor of a meter change out, is because we can get that work done as they're changing the meter out. You actually have to test that if you've got someone in there changing the meter out, changing the box out, they're going to have their hands on the customer service line. And this is one of the first times in all of history there's no precedent for utilities going past the meter. And they're wanting us to go past the meter. This is the initial inventory We give that back to the state, they pass it up to the feds, and then the feds are going to figure out, okay, where does the grant money need to go? If there is any lead whatsoever in the ground, it's got to come out.
So in turn, that could help us with our aging infrastructure to get it replaced with federal grant.
We have not encountered any lead lines, and so and we hope we never encounter them. If we do, we will make that known right away. And our lead and copper results are very good in the system. But if we do, yes, it would prioritize the city to receive funds for replacement there. And I don't want to go too deep, but the inventory actually gets a little bit deeper than that. If there were ever lead lines in the system, which is a really hard thing to prove, and there is galvanized line still in the system that was downstream of the lead line, it has to be replaced because it's a porous material. It can absorb things. And that's generally why we do quarterly lead and copper testing. But the city has never had any issues with lead and copper testing. And so, anyways, that inventory is very important. We want to stay in compliance with the regulators. And we will pass that on to the regulators in October with what we have done so far. But if you get the meter change out done and the contractors are testing at that time, you can hand over a completed inventory.
And just to make sure to underline something that you said, this is not an inventory. We know that the city's transmission system doesn't have any lead pipes in it. This is talking about customer side service lines to their homes.
Yes.
That the federal government is looking to, because all over the country, there are people who have old homes that have lead lines going up to their house from the meter. But so it's become a federal priority to check that, and we will. But our system does not currently have any lead
That's right.
pipe in it.
No main distribution lines that have lead in them. We do still have galvanized lines, but we're actually having to check the line from the meter to the house now.
Right.
And so we don't have records on that.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there a meter system that can put in place that also tests the water for certain elements as it's going by it?
There are some kind of advanced modules out there that can be added on to a meter, but they get, a general meter is going to cost anywhere from $120 to maybe $220, depending on the options. But you'd start going into $500–600, and after you put a water quality device on a meter like that and it stays out there, I would put faith in it for maybe a month, and then if it's not calibrated, it's a bigger weight. So,
Okay,
yeah.
just asking.
Yep, that's a good question. And again, we can come out and test at any time.
Right.
So we're happy to do that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
for clarification, out of these 64 work orders, everything was completed by our employees. Every work order that came in.
Yeah.
Is that a normal month right there?
There's some months that get up into the hundreds. There's some months we'll do 120 to 140 work orders a month.
If you get 120 in a month, how many of them's a meter percentage? 50%?
Probably 60 to 75% of them.
A lot of our time is spent doing rereads, so we go on a meter reading cycle and we may get 100 pages of meters that did not read in that cycle. And so we have to go, and each page would have about 5 meters on it. So we split up, 5 guys get 20 pages, they go out, they got to find the address, they lift the lid, write it down, it comes back, it gets keyed into the computer. That's a very inefficient, and human error is all over that. So, it's not a great system right now. And
There's tons of preventive maintenance that could be done and other activities
Yes.
that chasing the meters keep these guys from being able to plan and do.
That's right.
So it would be a great investment to get these meters that you can read in the office.
Yeah, not just for us, but
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I'm
what the
saying.
administrator mentioned is, excellent point. If someone has a leak, they go on vacation, pipe bust, and it's flooding their home, they walk home. We've already been notified, and we've gone out there and shut that water off. Those leak indicators are very accurate now, and they can throw alarms really quick. So can protect property. It's going to give. Generally, there's better customer portals, so people can look at their usage. They can get questions answered pretty quickly without sometimes even have to call up here. So there's a lot of the technology's come a long way in 10 years.
And part of this, just efficiency. The more efficient you can be, the better service you provide. As part of all this, we're also going to be looking at kind of a work order management system. So instead of keeping it kind of in a spreadsheet, anybody, the administrator, the mayor, a council member will have a login that if somebody says, I don't know when they're coming to do this, you can look and see who's assigned to it, whether they've been there today, whether they're done.
That's right.
And also as the administrator, I could, assign somebody, say, move this up the priority list. Right now, it's all, phone calls and slips of paper and that kind of stuff.
So if we eliminated all your meter calls, what would that free you guys up to be able to do? What would our community know? You could then do what?
Yeah, we could, we could start to prioritize some of these line replacements that we could do in-house, which is going to save the city money because they're not having to go out to bid on these large projects. If we have that time, we can do preventative maintenance on our pump stations and lift stations at a greater frequency. We can help with the fire department doing fire flow testing. I've been around town seeing bags on fire hydrants, and we've been trying to strategize how can we reduce those. We can do valve exercising. We can really start to look at the distribution system, see where we could use greater storage. But right now, we have come out of some of the firefighting mode, but we still feel like we're in it to some degree. We're chasing our tails a little bit, and until some of these larger projects are done, that's what's going to happen.
And another thing, and Drew's the expert on this, but just my own experience, that what valves you do have in the ground, if you have time to go out and make sure you know where they are.
Yes.
Make sure that the stuff is cleaned off of them. Turn the valve and make sure that it actually works, because we find a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
And actually introducing new valves into the system is not that expensive if you're doing it along and along. And why that's important is if you live on a street with 25 people and there's a valve, 3 people on either side of you, everybody's not dealing with it when there's a break in your front yard. You can discreetly limit it to different areas. And that's one of the most important things you can do to maintain a system and be able to isolate things.
Well, let's get that done.
So when you're going to start replacing water meters, can you do one at a time, or does it have to be all at the same time?
Generally, and this is what was quoted, they quote a large project where they will have contractors come in for, maybe, I'm not sure how long 5,000 meters would take, but let's say 2.5 months. Town of Hamilton's going through one right now, just started last week, where they're putting new meters in the ground. I think they have around 2,000 meters, and they'll probably be there for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. They go out, they may have to replace the box. Some of the new technology, it will not read as well through a metal box, so they'll put a composite box in. They may have to put an antenna on, so it can get
So I
pretty
was
expensive.
thinking that so your old system would be on one technology and your new one would be on a different technology, so they wouldn't work together.
That's right. Yeah, we'd be using 2 technologies for a little bit, but it'd be well worth it in the end. We'd gladly go through the short-term headaches.
Timetable-wise, this is kind of something we've been discussing, obviously, for the last week, because I've only been here for a week. But what we would likely do is get with the vendors. We've already gotten the bids and see what their availability is. If we approved it tonight, it would probably be after the start of the July budget year, because these guys have already programmed out their work. We just want to get on the the list and then assume that it's going to be in the budget. We'll work towards that. And then, I guess most of these guys, it would probably be summer would be the earliest.
Yeah, it may depend upon the manufacturer, meter availability. I think some of that stuff has gotten a little better, but yeah, I mean, we could work on that timeline as soon as possible. We would want to get them in as soon as we could. So.
But I'll get with Drew, we'll get together and kind of talk to some of the vendors and see if they've got a window that we could shoot for.
Excellent.
Do you have any idea what the life expectancy of these new meters would be?
Generally, the rule of thumb is 20 years, but the city uses master meter, and this is just my opinion. Master meter is kind of like, it's a budget brand. It works, but there are meters out there that have been in the ground for a long time. There's some different technologies out there now for capturing those flows. So we got a good range of meters in that proposal process back. So I just recommend taking a look at those. I mean, some of them are 90-page proposals, but there's a lot out there. So 20 years, I would say bank on that, but anything more than that, you can always test meters too to continue to see their accuracy. And if you get to the end, the reading system's still working well and you're 20 years in, maybe you can squeeze 5 or 10 more, as long as everything's accurate. So, but yeah, generally 20
That's with the battery?
That, with some of the technology now, you can actually change the battery. On these, you cannot change the battery. You have to change the entire register, which it costs about as much as putting a brand new meter.
So the battery will last 20, 25 years?
Well, the battery, it just depends on the meter you're talking about. Most of the time, it's 10 years for the battery, but they made the battery easier to change. So you could change the battery easier in a more economic way at the 10-year mark.
This also offers a good opportunity to talk about something that applies to all of these big projects. And Mandy and I will be working on this with the budget. A best practice that I intend to follow is if we spend $1.5 million putting new meters in the ground, then we're going to budget every year. If it's 20 years, we're going to budget 1/20th of the cost of replacing the meters, and that's going to be part of our rates. So that and that's just smart, when we buy a truck and we say it's going to last 5 years, we need to budget 1/5 of replacing it, so that when the truck burns up and the meter's dead, we've got the money in the bank to go buy them instead of trying to drop everything and figure it out. So that's how we're going to operate going forward.
Planning.
Yes.
It's all in the planning.
It is indeed.
Yes.
It makes it easy if you got the money set aside.
That's right. And you can make a decision right then instead of wishing
Yes.
for something. Does anybody have anything else to add with the utility work order bullet? Now we move into planning. Administrator, you have anything with planning?
I do not have anything planning.
Okay.
I think that Jennifer said that both of our planning groups had nothing on the agenda. So
Okay. There's nothing on the agenda for planning. Let that be a matter of record.
And then the
Our
report
court.
from the court is in there for your review.
Well, we're hoping in the future, instead of y'all sitting there and us looking at this, we can have something for them to look at up here.
Yeah,
Okay? So they can look at it also.
We're going to get the technology rolling.
We're gonna get it right. Does anybody have any questions about court? That's what you see? If not, Chief Beach, you are up with the police department.
Mayor, Council, I'll still report that I have I've got the best job in the city. I do.
It never fails. We get that
No.
first all the
And I
time.
tell you, if Saturday I had the opportunity to be at the Winter Bluegrass Jubilee at the high school, and there were hundreds upon hundreds of people in our community, and to watch hundreds of young people in that YAMS program and what that means to this community is just outstanding to be a part of that and to just be a little small town chief of police to be asked to come up with Representative Hyatt to say a few words and thanks. It's a big deal. And that was great to see that in this community. As we ended 2023, I'm just kind of shocked of what we did in December. The administrator has my lengthy monthly report that we won't regale you with, but I was astounded as I went back and reviewed it late this evening of what we were able to do. And as I see Councilman or Councilwoman Winter here, the fundraiser for that Oconee deputy. And some of y'all were there. It was a phenomenal event in the community as a solemn reminder of what we ask these young people to do and put their lives on the line. And that deputy's doing pretty well today, but that $20,000 that we raised was very important. I thank you for what you did in that and drawing the law enforcement community together for a common cause. But December was filled for us with a lot of things. And a lot of people in this room were involved, everything from Country Santa to the shop with the hero. Ingalls partnered with us, and we had 250 really robust bags of groceries that we infused into this community, into some hurting people. There's project after project after project happened in December, but also what happened in December was the culmination. If anybody read the newspaper and saw this article about Devil in Disguise, for about 7 months, our police department was working in what's called a grand jury case, which means it's secret, that nobody knows about. Very few people, even within the police department, knew that we were working a covert, undercover case with SLED and with the Pickens County Sheriff's Office and Greenville County Sheriff's Office. And if I didn't mention the work that Lieutenant Chris Griffin did at the sacrifice of his family, and it just kept going and going. And this case culminated in December with hour after hour traveling in a multi-county area, trip after trip to Columbia to the grand jury. This case is being worked by the Attorney General's office. And to everyone's knowledge, that a case like this has not been done in the history of the Pickens Police Department. And we weren't just along for the ride. Lieutenant Griffin was day in and day out working covertly with informants in an undercover capacity, making undercover purchases of fentanyl. When people ask me, what's one of the greatest problems facing, law enforcement in Pickens, what is your biggest challenge? And I say, well, it's the Mexican border. We should not be able to go out within a mile of here and buy fentanyl. We just should not, but it's here. And he's finishing another case. And these cases involve fentanyl overdose deaths moving towards a version of a homicide prosecution. These are complex cases. And Lieutenant Chris Griffin and other members of this police department are top shelf investigators. And you should be proud of them. Let me tell you, about every other word, what should say is Lieutenant Chris Griffin, Lieutenant Chris Griffin. And I'm not to the detriment of the other people in the other agencies. And I was so proud. This article is in a nice frame, and it's in his office. If you ever have a chance to go back there, he's proud of his work and takes great pride in what he does. As we closed out 2023, I say this number with great lamentation. We ended 2023 with 991 arrests. We should not be at that number. I wish it was zero. And for 991, there was probably 991 that we didn't arrest and possibly could have. And we still want to be gentle in this community and have compassion on a lot of offenses. we want to reduce that number. We're probably already at 55 arrests in 22 days, and our average is maintaining the same, around 23 case numbers per day at 45 minutes per case number. It takes most of your day. Our folks are busy, even in the cold. We ended 2023, the Christmas, New Year's Eve day, ended with 2 drug search warrants here in the city with methamphetamine and distribution quantities of other narcotics, right until the last minute. It didn't stop us. And we got to keep going. Again, with lamentation, that number, I don't even want to say the number. Our goal this year is to really turn that number down. We're not going to turn our heads to bad behavior and criminal activity, but we really want to reduce that, and we need to come up with some plans to do that, because these numbers cost us in terms of our jail bill and some of these other things that we need to come up with more creative ways for arrest booking to reduce this number and move towards some citations and work with our court to reduce that. We've done a great job. If you look around our streets right now, there's fewer homeless people out there. It's not just because of the weather. We've worked vigorously with behavioral health and other groups. There was one particular person who just was a staple in this community that you would see every day, and worked with behavioral health. And all I can say is that person is off the streets and they're safe. And that's a wonderful thing. We still want to bring a lot of compassion to these souls in our community that are troubled emotionally, behaviorally. And we're going to keep doing that as well and try to come up with some plans. And I just want to thank the council for just being at everything and being present and what that means. I'll invite you. We have a departmental meeting Wednesday night over here at I know the mayor's been to at least one. We'll have a departmental meeting. I'll send out an email. It means a lot to the men and women of the department, and it's a time for us to be positive and really accentuate and talk about some of the great work that these officers do. But I won't bore you with any more numbers. I don't know if there's any questions, but if you get a chance to see Lieutenant Griffin and thank him for what he did, this community is safer. And yes, and his wife, for the countless hours that he was not home. He really was gone a lot. And people in the police department wondered, where's Chris? Where's Chris? Doesn't he work here anymore? And I was not allowed to really say anything. He's working. And he really was. And this community is safer. It really is. But, any questions about what we're doing? Still the greatest job in the city.
I just want to thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, because you have been exercising justice, but it's been tempered with mercy. I go back there all during the day, and there's somebody from the community that feels safe to come and talk to you. And that means the world to me to see that.
Thank you.
You're not just arresting people. Yeah, that 900 some odd that you just mentioned, they never know about the 1,000 that just come by for just words of comfort. And they can see that in our chief of police and in our police department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it too. I've been out with you guys 3 times. I went out with you and 2
And I
others.
think you have as well. Thank you. Hopefully they
The
didn't
love
mistreat you.
and the joy and that you bring to our neighborhood was a real blessing to me. Just to watch how you interacted, all you guys, with the folks, and you really did have a lot of compassion. I mean, I saw people, I'd pull them over, but you were. I heard some really good explanations. Let's not over. We're trying to keep our community. We're trying to show the folks we care, focus on the real important things. So I was real impressed with all of your teams.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
That's the first police chief I ever seen arrest somebody. They tell me he love him. That he love him. Because you give him a
Maybe not all the
chance.
time. Maybe not all the time.
But most of the time.
Well, anyway, please come drop by, visit. I'll send out that email to remind everyone about that Wednesday meeting. I hope you all can make it for that.
What time?
5 o'clock.
This Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
Like tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and council, I've had the privilege of working in various capacities, both in government and in the private sector, with law enforcement agencies around South Carolina and Georgia. And I've very rarely seen one led by somebody who cares as much about his people and his community as Chief Beach does.
Yes.
And I'll tell you that stings a little bit, because as I've dug into the budget and looked at, I've been very pleased with what we're able to pay most of our workers. I think we've done an admirable job, but that ends when I get to our first responders. And I think we need to do a serious comparison to competing jurisdictions.
Yes.
That's why I requested, and I'm just pointing out my memo where I asked for some money for that compensation and classification study. That will allow us to go in and see what's fair and reasonable and what's competitive, because some of the officers are being compensated fairly well and some just aren't. And we need to make sure that it's fair, that we have a system in place that rewards merit and the fine work that Chief
Yes,
Beach
sir.
and his people are doing.
Absolutely.
And I applaud you.
I know
for what you
I don't know if you've seen the work these guys have been doing out there, but they're getting with it.
All right. Thank you so much, Chief. Elrod, Fire Department. Another good one coming up here.
And I told the mayor I'm very excited because we're going to talk about fire trucks. It's like the 12-year-old to me is just ready to go.
Just briefly,
Thank you.
I got to ride in that fire truck.
that's right.
It was fun, man.
I'm good. Yes, sir.
We completed the year. We're working on our annual report. Did not get it completed by the amount that we made by next month. Ended up with 646 calls for service last year. That is obviously an uptick of about 10%. Over the past 3 years, we've seen an uptick of about 10% of calls. So that equates to about 60 more calls per year. That is something we've been able to manage. As you know, we increased our staffing level this year. We doubled it from 1 person to 2 people.
All right.
So that was the first time we had done that since 1975. Actually added a full-time employee to the fire department. So we're proud of that. I do want to take just a few minutes this morning or this evening to tell you about your fleet. This is something I've always stood behind. It's not my fleet. It's not the fire department. It is the city of Pickens fleet of fire trucks. And why do we have what we have? And what do we have? So if my famous tech guy over here, if he'll start with our engine 1. This is the classic looking fire truck that we've all seen. It is a 1987 model. This truck runs every single day on calls. It goes to all of our medical calls and it goes to all of our rescue calls. And the reason it does that is it has the most storage space on it. And the fire department just has matured through the years. We carry a lot more equipment than we did 20 years ago. We just have to be at all encompassing and make sure that we're prepared for anything. So the truck is a 1987 model, currently has 31,000 miles on it as of today. Don't let miles deceive you. Those are hard miles. Those are do not account for the amount of time it's sitting there pumping water. We crank them every single morning. Make sure that our fleet is prepared for the day. So just because the mileage is low, that truck has had a lot of use through the years.
So those are 30-some thousand hard miles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've worked over the past 10 years since I've been your chief to kind of balance the use of trucks so they're not running one truck in the ground and another truck is in pristine condition. We've tried to be very balanced about that. And then, so that's our engine 1. Our engine 2, if you see, it is a commercial cab. And what a commercial cab is, when that truck was built, it could have been a garbage truck, it could have been a dump truck, but they pulled that chassis and put a fire body on it. That's a 1998. Currently, we have that listed as a reserve. We alternate that between that and engine 3 that we'll talk about in a moment, but it's got 35,000 miles on it. It was purchased brand new in 1998 for $171,000. Engine 1, I believe, was $157,000 or something like that when it was purchased in 1987. So what we've seen, commercial versus custom. With the commercial, it's a cheaper truck, and it generally causes more maintenance issues. The 1998 is in worse condition than the 1987 is right now. And our newest truck that we purchased new is a 2005 Pierce, once again a commercial chassis, purchased for $250,000 in 2005. It's right at 30,000 miles it has. So we've got the mileage pretty even amongst all the trucks. However, it is a 2005. So I bring this to your attention because we're going to be in need coming up. This city has not purchased a brand new truck since 2005. If I purchased a truck today, we're looking at $650,000 to $700,000 for a truck like that. And it's going to take us 2.5 to 3 years to get it here on build time. Is that something that's feasible, or do we need to be looking in the used arena? So that's something that we'll be talking about in the days ahead. So our newest addition to the fleet is a 2007 model that we purchased last year. This is a 75-foot aerial truck, ladder truck. So it has a ladder, plus it has the pump and the water that it carries. It carries a smaller tank of water so that we can have room for the ladders and everything like that. It has 49,000 miles on it. It had 46,000 when we purchased it, but it has a motor that was put in at 40,000 miles. So it's got a brand new motor in it that's got less than 9,000 miles on it. So we purchased this truck from Clemson University last year. It's been a great truck for us. We're really proud of it, what we're able to do with that. I feel like this truck's going to serve us for a long time to go. We still have a brush truck. This is an F550. It's a 2003 model. We purchased brand new for $86,000. It's obviously in the city. We don't use it quite as much as we used to. For outdoor fires, we're able to get to everything on the road, but we use it for a tow vehicle to be able to tow our trailers that we'll talk about shortly. The newest pickup truck we have is a 2017 F250 that was purchased for $48,000. In the back of it has the incident command stuff, all the radios to be able to run a scene. Plus, it was purchased to be able to tow our technical rescue trailers. Currently, 32,000 miles on it. The 2006 F150 has 126,000 miles on it, just used as a station truck. And then our Ford Ranger is 136,000. That's something we was able to get from the wastewater plant in 2022 and make it into replace the 1999 F-150 we had at the time. Our service truck, our rescue truck, is a 1985 model International. Purchased a motor for the windshield wipers today. It took me forever to find it. It was right at $600 just to keep windshield wipers on it. It's an obsolete part. So that's something that we need to be looking at in the future. We purchased it in 2013 for $9,500. That truck ultimately replaced a 1968 model that we had been using as a service truck. It's got 270,000 miles on it currently. That's what it got the day we purchased it, because the speedometer doesn't work. So therefore the odometer doesn't work, so the mileage does not change. So every time you see that truck, it's going to have the exact same mileage on it.
All right.
But we do know that it governs out at 52 miles an hour, so we're not too worried about it speeding in that truck. But it is full of equipment that we need on large commercial fires, stuff like that, larger fans, also some rescue equipment that's on that truck.
How often do you use that, Grant?
That truck goes out, I would say, about 10 times a year.
10 times a year?
Yes. These are kind of our newest addition with what we've had to start with. We reached out to forestry. They have surplus programs, so we were able to procure two side-by-sides from them. This one was $1,250. We sold an old brush truck and generated $10,000 off of it. So we invested that $10,000 back. We've got a medical unit in the back of it. This is what we use for events, standbys, to go to football games, to go to downtown festivals, anywhere like that. This is probably being used more than we ever thought it was going to, just doing standbys for events and stuff like that. So that was our medical standby cart. And then this was our fire standby cart. It has a compressed air foam system on it that holds 30 gallons. The thoughts behind this is it could be used for a brush fire down the Doodle Trail, but it could also, like at car shows and stuff like that, when we cannot get a truck to it, this is set up to be able to knock a fire down and us to be able to rapidly get to it. It has an SCBA on it and stuff like that. Our technical rescue trailers, we're super proud of these. In 2016 and 2017, we wrote 2 federal grants, got funding for this equipment. So in trailer number 1, we have everything for road rescue, confined space rescue, and flood water rescue. We're not to the point of swift water rescue yet. That's something that down the road we may look at trying to embark on, but that's going to be a cost factor. But we are fully equipped for any kind of high angle road rescue or any kind of confined space with what we have in that one trailer. All that was purchased on grant funds, so it's something we're very proud of. The second trailer looks almost the same to it, it's just got larger axles for the weight. That is for trench rescue. We're the only ones in Pickens County that have the trench rescue equipment. So we partner with Clemson University, we partner with wherever in Pickens County we'll roll that truck to, that trailer to. That's why we have to have tow vehicles. We use the brush truck and the F-250 to be able to tow these heavy trailers. But this is something that we've used the first trailer with the water department a lot of little confined space standbys. This one we've actually responded it when we've had some tornadoes and wind damages for structural collapse. It has thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment that's stored in that trailer. So unfortunately, these trailers have to sit outside. So we're working on a plan to be able to mitigate that in the foreseeable future.
Real time.
So we're going to, but those are 2 things that you have a valuable resource sitting down there that you didn't have to pay for. That was all federal grants that we're able to get those. And the last thing in our fleet is our newest addition is 2 light towers. We wrote a grant for that as well. The grant paid $20,000 for those 2 light towers, and that left the city to pay $86 for those 2 light towers. And they've come in very, yes, sir.
That is awesome.
They've come in very valuable. One, the tow behind them, I think the water department may have used it more than anybody so far. They love having it at night just to be able to illuminate where they're working and make it safer for them. You know, the one is a unique light tower in that we can take it indoors. It just simply plugs into a standard outlet. The mast goes up 16 feet on it. When we could take it inside if we had a warehouse or something like that, and the power was off, we could roll it in there, illuminate everything, and make it safe for us. But it worked great during the Christmas parade because there was no noise from it, so we did that. Just want to take a few minutes just to introduce you to your fleet. A lot of new faces up here, so I just wanted you to know what you have, what we have to work with, and as we start moving forward with a plan, and much like we talked about throughout this meeting, we failed to plan on how we're going to maintain this fleet and replace this fleet through the years. That's why we've got trucks. The NFPA says 10 years on the front line, and then the next 10 years, and then 20 years, it should be retired. Well, if we go on that principle, our entire fleet's retired. But we work diligently. We're working this week to do preventative maintenance on all our trucks. We're doing that in-house now, changing all the filters, all the fluids. You have a good fleet of trucks, but they are aging. And it's something that we cannot continue to kick the can down the road or it's going to really bite us one day. So, any questions for me?
Wow.
Very important.
I really appreciate, I was out with your guys, and you know, and they really showed me everything. I really appreciate their kindness and let me watch their training videos, and they showed me inside everything and let me even ride in the truck while they got some gas. I really appreciate it. And they did nothing but, and I applaud you unbelievably. Your guys, you're writing these grants. for the stuff they showed me in those trailers. That is absolutely incredible. I mean, that is great work.
Yes.
And I want to applaud you for that.
We've been very blessed to have the funding coming in for grants, and for a department our size, we really have a lot of equipment. We're really proud of that.
Yeah, that's really awesome work. Thank you to you guys for being so hospitable, for allowing me to come up there and hang out.
Absolutely, anytime.
And thank you for being such a great man. You know, sometimes we would give Chief Elrod a hard time because he'd always come here looking for a truck or something of that nature. And people say, well, they already got trucks. You don't need all those trucks. It's easy to say that until you need them. And I thank you for being so conscientious and being on the job and thinking about the future for us. We as a city are proud to have you, and thank you for all your work.
And I plan over the next few months just to take little excerpts like this and just to educate you on what the fire department, what we have, what our needs are, kind of what ISO is, so you understand what we do, because it's more than just putting wet stuff on red stuff, as they say. We do a lot of public service, we do a lot of medical,
Yes.
we do, the breakdown is phenomenal what your fire department does for this community,
How much of your own mechanical work do you guys actually do?
as much as possible. As long as it doesn't get into us having to pick the truck up and lift the truck, chances are we'll get it. We don't do brakes or tires, but anything else we try to do in-house.
Okay.
Sir.
We appreciate that.
All
That's
right.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I forgot to mention, sir, Mayor, the police didn't mention this. He's too humble, but Ty, apparently, and I want to give him some credit for doing all that work on the police cars. I mean, he has saved the city a whole bunch of money. Because Ty takes the cars to his own shop and works on the engines and keeps those police cars up and going, where it would have cost us a lot of money as a city. And we really want to say thank you to Chief and to Ty for all that awesome work. And to see
Pass that on, thank you.
You
Yeah,
heard him
appreciate it.
say he had all kinds of time, he didn't arrest but 900.
900.
Director Morris, Fire Recreation.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of information and words on the pamphlet and packet that I submitted to y'all. I'm not going to go over every single word in that. I'm going to hit some of the highlights and give you just an overview to begin with of the department, what we do, and a little bit of what we have. In that first section, you can see the department's made up of two branches, for parks and recreation. A lot of times, recreation is what get focused on because that's what is more involved, I guess. You have more kids, 1,500 plus kids coming through our program every year. That touches a lot of families and a lot of people in the community, so that is a large portion of what gets focused on. But we do have over 150 acres of parks and green space property within the city, 10 ball fields, 4 different parks, and all of that is run by 3 full-time, counting myself, and 3 part-time within the department. So we do everything from registration of a sport to cutting the grass and painting the ball fields. Now, as some city council members have mentioned, the painting of the ball fields is made a little bit easier due to some upgrades we've recently received.
It is.
Yes, but we still do get out there and chalk the lines on the baseball fields and have to mark off for certain things, or inside design a layout on a tablet for that robot. We do have to spend time in those fields and in the parks and the playgrounds doing that work. For a recreation side, on the update for that, we did host, towards the end of this past year, several state tournaments for football, soccer, and volleyball, which has been less popular in the past, but we've this year been able to achieve that, be able to bring in those teams and bring in those outside groups to come in and be part of those tournaments, which brought people into the city for eating, staying, and shopping and visiting the town. So we would spend Saturdays or weeks at a time with games in the evenings, which would bring in hundreds, and depending on the football, especially on the tournaments, sometimes even upward of 1,000 folks into the city at any given day for that. Now soccer was a smaller number than that, and volleyball would fall right around 500-ish per evening or per Saturday for those state tournaments. We were able to host those throughout the fall. Our basketball games have started this year already. We had registration for those in December. Games started at the beginning of January. And already this year we've had over 58 games this month alone. With registrations being in record numbers, we've had almost 300 athletes sign up for basketball this year, which exact number was 296. But with higher numbers of athletes comes higher number of games, higher number of referees, higher number of staff to be able to work the scoreboard and do different things with that, and higher number of nights that we have games. You can see on your paper that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, we have games or practices happening at the rec center. So that means we've got staff up there all day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that's from 9 a.m. when we open until about 9:30 some nights, but usually about 10 o'clock in the evenings, that there's people coming and going from that building. This year, with a higher number of athletes, that, like I said, meant more expenditures in basketball. In order to help alleviate that and cut down on some of that, we did do part of our jerseys in-house. We had to order the jerseys themselves, but we were able to do a lot of the printing and whatnot, not necessarily printing, but heat press and whatnot on those jerseys in-house to help cut down on that cost and to help save. It did stress us more with hours in the building trying to get those completed, but it did help with the budget and help with that for this year with us, like I said, having more athletes than we expected. We did host a Christmas tournament just before Christmas up at the Rec Center for basketball, and it was a large success. We had teams and departments from all across the upstate and all across our district coming in for that tournament. So we had an excellent turnout for that. And on the note of a basketball tournament, I wanted to mention that I found out this morning the Dacusville Rec, which is in our community and in our area, is going to be having what they will call a tournament, or are calling a tournament, but it's more of just a day fundraiser benefit for a particular person. I don't know that they're going to announce yet who that is, and in the next meeting I'll make sure that you're aware of who it is and what it's for. But they're going to have a charity event that day to be able to raise some funds for a family that is well connected with the Dacusville Rec and has done a lot of work in the community and through the Dacusville Rec that's in need of some support right now. So that'll be February 17th at the Dacusville Rec, and it'll be an all-day event. So I'm sure that they would love to see anybody and everybody there that's able. It's not in city limits, but it involves a lot of folks that are in this community and a lot of families that even will eventually be in the city of Pickens or coming to Pickens High School in this area. Volleyball and soccer, baseball, softball, and t-ball registrations are all happening right now. So we've got 5 different sports being registered while we're having all of these basketball games going on just on the recreation side. And in addition to the recreation, you can see on that next page that parks and facility sides are still happening as well. We've got work happening on just about every facility and property that we have, some larger projects that are long-term, some shorter projects. One highlight is recreation building heat units have had some issues, and we are getting quotes current. I've got one company came today, another company coming tomorrow to give us some ideas on what the cost is going to look like to replace those heating units. One of our gyms right now stays at about an average of 54 to 58 degrees. And even during basketball games, it stays at around that. So when you've got 100-ish people in there and it's still at 58 degrees, that's a cold building during the day. So we're working on getting those heaters replaced and repaired. One upside is that if you look at J.C. Park at the old concessions building, we had some storm damage there from the July storm. We were finally able to get with the insurance company and get that repaired. It's a brand new roof sitting on top of that building, and it is a gorgeous metal roof. We have had assurances through the company that if anything goes wrong or anything's, we'll say faulty, I don't believe it will be, but if it is, they'll take care of it and they'll make sure that everything's right with that. So we're very thankful for the work that they put in and the timeline. Once they got started, less than a week, we had a brand new roof on there, and they made sure that everything from the gutters all the way to the facade and the roof itself were done correctly and replaced that needed to be. On the park side, J.C. Park, as per last meeting, is underway. We're waiting on county to give us some updates and some upgrade information from what we had previously about the grading to be done down there. I'm hoping that by February we will have some answers and some dates from them. If not, we will probably have to step back and look at another option or a different route for that. That is included in the proposal that was approved last meeting. So we're waiting to hear back from them on some final answers for that. As far as from the most recent flood at J.C. Park, We did have some asphalt ditches and some structural issues that came up. The asphalt part of it, we've gotten the majority of it cleaned. And if you ride by Volunteer Field, you'll see that a lot of that parking lot is still pretty muddy and still pretty rough. We're working on getting that ditch cleaned out from the parking lot to the river. Has a lot of backfill and a lot of silt buildup in it, so we'll have to do some cleaning out to drop that level down so that the parking lot flows into the ditch before it goes into the river. And then once that's completed, we can clean that parking lot off. So it's not that we're just leaving it muddy and an eyesore, it's we're having to do some foundation work, so to speak, to be able to get that push out of the parking lot. The 12-mile watershed project should be finalized soon, which I'm not sure how much of this y'all are aware of. I'll bring more information in the next meeting as this approaches. But the 12-mile watershed's been working with us and other agencies within the county and within the 12-mile watershed area about some pollutants, projects for rainwater runoff upgrades, and ways to eliminate those pollutants in our watershed. 12-mile watershed is what we fall in and what we're under. Town Creek, I hate to say, was the 4th largest pollutant in that watershed. Now that does not necessarily mean, as most folks in Pickens assume, that it's running rampant with PCBs or anything like that. This just means natural pollutants, things that would normally be filtered, things that would normally be cleared through the runoff, through the ground and through filtration, natural filtration. I spoke with Drew a couple of times about this and what their plans are versus what we could actually or should need and what we could actually do. There is a proposal from them for about a $550,000 project through the watershed. Funding is available through grants and whatnot for that. Once they give us a finalized copy of their project proposal, we'll have a better idea of what they're actually looking at for the city within our area and what kind of funding opportunities there are and what that would entail. And once that's finalized, I'll bring that back for y'all to be able to see and be able to look at. On the Doodle Park side of it, I agree that that gym needs to be shined up in a couple of little things. We've got the irrigation system ready for the spring, so when spring comes, we'll be able to turn those dirt patches a pretty shade green. So we've got supplies and the irrigation ready. We had to replace some parts and pieces of that bike pump at the repair station at the trailhead up there. The bike pump itself had the hose cut off and several pieces of the inside that were reallocated by someone as they were using it, I'm sure. So we've had to replace a few things, replace the entire insert for the pump. It is operational, and that station is back up to par with all the parts, pieces, and everything that it needs to be operational. My goal still is for the Railroad Museum to be opened up, rather, by the end of the spring, beginning of the summer with volunteer staff. I've been speaking with Mr. Crawford some about that, to be able to staff it with folks on at least Fridays and Saturdays so that the public can come and enjoy that museum. It's a beautiful, beautiful asset to that park, and it's got a lot of historic information in it that up until now has been inaccessible to the public. So our goal is to have that open by then so folks can come in and see some of the history of our town and the railroad itself. The amphitheater, we're still working on a couple of little issues at it. We've got a water line issue that we're working on. It's not a huge break or huge problem right now, so we're not pushing that too far down CWS's hotline because I don't want to take them away from the issues for the citizens and for the things that they need to do. We are still working on that. We haven't pushed it by the wayside. As far as trails go, on the bike trail and the Appalachian Lumber Greenway, which is the asphalt trail between the rec center and JC Park, we're working on being able to repair that bike trail in the places that it needs repaired and replace the parts that need to be replaced. I'm still waiting on some final numbers from the sawmill that has provided that lumber in the past to be able to give us some updated info on what we need for that. As far as the Greenway trails, we're working on clearing out the nature trails between the asphalt and the river itself so that it's accessible. We've had several people give us some updated issues over the past couple of weeks since that flood, so we're adding those to the list to make sure that they get addressed. And then before the spring, our goal is to have some new signage up in those trails as well. Right now, I think there's half a sign in one spot, and then there's a lot of paint on trees where it was blazed, but not any kind of clear markings on what this blaze color means versus what that is. So we're wanting to upgrade that and fix it back to be where it should be. And then on the Doodle Trail, the track trail proposal was presented back in the fall to the previous council. I'll bring more information on that to y'all to be able to let you know what it is and that you can be up to speed on it. We were approached back in the late summer, early fall about the Doodle Trail becoming a track trail for the state of South Carolina. They had a committee meeting, I believe it was the end of the summer, and the Doodle Trail Pickens end was what was presented and voted on by their committee, and then they reached out to us to see if it was something we'd be interested in. It is essentially, in a nutshell, a way to get kids out in the trails. It brings the young folks out onto the trails with opportunities to win prizes or gifts from this group and this grant program. So if they complete the track trail, they submit the paperwork or just the form online, and Track Trail sends them a little gift and a little neat little brochure and things that are specific to the Doodle Park or specific to the Doodle Trail or whatever we'd like to focus our brochure on. And then, like I said, there will be more detail on that once we get the information ready for you. But hopefully right now we'll be able to continue moving forward with these little projects to get them knocked out before the spring. And we'll keep going with these athletes as the numbers continue to grow even for our spring sports.
That's great.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan did not share the wonderful mystery story that he helped solve. He's been invaluable to me this week because as a new resident of Pickens, I said, Jonathan, I can't find the Doodle Trail. And he says, well, yeah, you can, and I could. But our wayfinding signage, I was trying to point out that there were no wayfinding signs that pointed to the Doodle Trail. And he said, well, you're right. And he says, I'll reach out and find out who made the signs that are up there, and we'll get signs that point to the Doodle Park. Well, I was out of town this weekend and got an email from Jonathan that said, well, I found out who made them. Even better, I found out we've already got the signs. They're up at Public Works, and they're in storage, and they were waiting for the park to be completed. I haven't been here long, but when was the park completed?
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But Jonathan is helping. We were getting with Public Works, and we will soon have signs that point out where the Doodle Trail is. Thank you, Jonathan.
No problem. Sorry I did skip over that. I still, after almost a year, still get a little nervous when I get up here in front of you.
Don't worry about it. I got a question for you, though, so we can have better
I do
understanding
too.
about Freddie.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right, one question. Has anyone ever at former council ever asked you, or has it ever been proposed having electric or regular bikes that can be rented by people and we can make money? I mean, they can use credit cards and going up and down that trail. I mean, I've had so many people and guests that come to my house and so on ask about it, and there are no bikes available. We have to go all the way to Greenville to get
I
one.
don't know that previous council at any point has asked, not that I can remember right offhand. I'm not saying they haven't, but I just can't remember offhand if any particular council person did. I have had several citizens ask, and even non-residents of Pickens ask about that for the Doodle Trail. We have looked into it recently. Now, previously, 2 years ago, there was a local business on the end of the trail that rented out bicycles, and I believe that the city decided at the time they didn't want to try to compete with a business within the city.
Right.
Now, since then, that business has, first it shifted direction, and then I believe it's closed completely now. But we could absolutely look at something to have electric bikes or even standard mechanical bikes in that area to rent out. We could add it to the trailhead and have a station from there because we do have electricity in that area and in the park playground area or of the pavilion area. It would have to be an automated system unless we were able to find it to be able to add an additional staff person for that area and whatnot. But similar to what Greenville has, we could add that to here. I know Easley City has brought it up in the past, and I don't want to put words out for her, but me and Crispin from Easley have spoke about it in the past, the potential for that, to even have one end on this end, one on that end, so they could rent here, go to Easley and drop it, or vice versa. To be able to do that. That's absolutely something we can get more information on if that's something that council will be interested in for our part.
Councilman, I wonder if you would kind of look into that effort and lead it, because I have a suggestion. I hadn't heard about this before, but we have parks throughout the state and other communities that provide concessions. And maybe we could operate our museum by finding a private business that wants to rent bicycles and could mine the store at the museum and rent bicycles.
That would be awesome.
So we could kill two birds with one stone and put people on bicycles.
Yeah.
But that would be an opportunity where we could offer them a lease concession where they could either lease a portion of the facility or share a portion of their proceeds. But
Yeah.
I'd like to work with you on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think there are some innovative ways that we can handle that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
There was one thing that was brought to my attention by some of the elderly that want to see the bike trail.
Yes, sir.
We ought to have something like what Chief Elrod has, those little cars,
Yes, sir.
to designate sometimes during the week that we can take elderly out and ride that trail. That can't ride a bicycle.
Yes, sir. Right now, there's one day a week that you can take a golf cart if you have a permit, that you can take it out on the trail and ride if you have a
Okay.
personal golf cart. Now, within our department, we do have a gator that I do not recommend putting anyone other than maybe a city employee that signed a waiver on.
Okay.
No, we do have a gator, but I would absolutely love to be able to have an ATV of some kind, similar to what Chief Elrod has, or to work out something with them to be able to utilize that to allow the public to ride that trail.
It's very important because there's so many people that can't do that.
Yes, sir.
And they need to be able to see the beautiful trail that we have. I mean, I had some people come with tears in their eyes and said, I don't think we'll ever be able to see it. I said, yes, I know a man that can help us make it happen.
Absolutely.
So I'll put it in your ball.
All right.
Also, you're such a good planner. I want you to help us with two things.
Okay.
J.C. Park,
Yes, sir.
we ought to be able to have something in place to where we can save our park from being flooded.
Yes, sir.
Because we're getting ready to put a lot of money and effort into that park. And if we don't make a plan to dredge that creek and build up some levees, we're gonna have this problem every time we have a lot of rain.
Yes, sir.
I think that's putting good money on bad if we don't decide to try to protect it. So I'll put that in your wheelhouse also.
I like it. To mention or to speak off of that briefly, the 12-mile watershed project that they're presenting,
Okay.
I have had a chance to look at the draft, and what they're looking at is a lot of those drainage ditches, like what comes up to Volunteer Field or what comes up into J.C. Park near the playground there. They're wanting to convert those, or wanting to recommend rather, converting those over to what they call rain gardens, which would be a fill-in of the ditch with a particular type soil, particular plants within that area to help filter that water naturally in the low spots before it goes into the river. Right now, as you saw and read in my update from the flood, that water runs into a ditch through a corrugated pipe straight into the river. There's no way for that water to be quote-unquote filtered as it goes into the river, before it goes into the river. My concern with that is that right now, as it stands, the last flood, all of our flood waters came up from those ditches and came up essentially where the river filled up, pushed out the ditches and into the low points out in those fields. If we fill in those ditches in the drainage areas, that's going to block that area for that water to come out, which in essence sounds great. It means the water's not going to come out into our low areas, but that water has to go somewhere, which means it's going to rise in the main riverbed, and it will break the main banks at that point and come out into a much bigger area and a much bigger issue.
Is there a way to take care of that? I mean, is that a stormwater issue?
Mr. Mayor, Jonathan is a hard-working soul who's got lots of great ideas, but he's not an engineer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that's why, I keep using this, they're playing in my hands to play back to my memo where I'm asking for $175,000 in professional services. Because this is the perfect case where Jonathan and I can go out there with a bulldozer and guess all day long. But we need an engineer to come in, a stormwater engineer, a specialist, to come in and look and say, this is what you need to do, so we have some confidence.
We in the same boat, because I was going to ask Drew to help us with the stormwater situation. I was getting to that.
Well, when you see the big number there, and even Drew, I think, would want more of a stormwater engineer to look at the hydrology of the area and the flows and things like that. But that's why, if that sum of 175 sounds big, we've talked about a lot of things that we're going to get some experts to come look at. And that's where we're going to pay for that out.
You talk about that rain garden, if I'm not mistaken, that's the reason that bamboo was planted down through there behind the senior field.
Yes, sir.
Just for that simple
To help
reason.
filter that. The issue we have right now is the bamboo was planted for that, and it has taken over a large portion behind Senior Field and the river itself. The area where the actual drainage ditch on the outside of Senior Field runs, the bamboo was cleared for the last big flood we had, and dirt was added in there, so it does help with the natural filtration. But then the areas from Senior Field upstream, bamboo hasn't reached up there and hasn't gotten to that point. So we're still facing those in that area, or those issues in that area. But to your point of, I'm not an engineer for any of that or engineer degree, and don't claim to have that skill set. I know there is a way, and I know that it will probably be a costly way to be able to do it. But
Right.
it would take someone much more specialized in that than me.
But we want to do it once.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but see, I was telling you this because you're the director.
Yes, sir.
And I was putting that in, my knowledge in the saying that we need to have something done.
Yes, sir.
That was my only point.
Okay.
Another one is about Team Canteen
Yes, sir.
property. We had a good proposal that was brought to us for housing.
Yes, sir.
Me and you have already talked about this at one time, about getting a good rendering for what we want to do with that.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move on that.
Yes,
And
sir.
especially get those trees off the field.
Yes, sir. I
Yes.
agree with that. And it needs to be done or else.
But I can't get, Administrator, would you give him that direction?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think he's on it, all right.
Yeah. But I just wanted to bring that we're moving, and I want the public to know that we are a team and we're moving forward and getting some of these things done.
Yes, sir.
We have a constructive group. I thank you for all that you've done. You've been put to the fire at times, and you've really come out like pure gold. And we just want you to continue, and we want to support you with that.
Thank
And
you.
anything else you need from us as a council, we will either help you get it, or we will tell you how to get along without it.
I can do either one of them.
So we're going to work good. Yes, sir. Thank you, seriously. I was just joking.
Yeah.
I also, as administrator, and I also really appreciate your work.
Thanks, sir.
I love the recreation department, and I'm always using it. But a bathroom on the Doodle Trail, I mean, you know how many times I've had to use a tree?
Yes,
I mean, and everyone else that rides bikes out there?
Yes, sir.
I mean, so I don't know, you and Easley are working on that too? Or?
We had actually spoke to the Rotary Club about potentially doing something at the halfway shelter, or the halfway
That'd be awesome,
mark.
yeah.
The biggest issue with that is that there's not sewer out there.
Right.
The property, because of the Rotary Park area, is a little bit of a tricky thing to get all three working together on and joined in with one effort out there. But the biggest part of it would be getting water and sewer to that location. It's not near a residence, it's not near the roadway itself, so there would have to be some collaborative efforts from the three groups, private property owners and the county, to be able to make that an actual facility. Now, having a portage on there is one thing, but having an actual restroom facility would take a good bit of work. Not saying it can't be done, I would just need the approval and the
Well, we could start with
directive to start moving forward with trying to make it happen.
just a temporary thing. It'd be great for the summertime, just have something out. I know nighttime there's a lot of vandalism goes on out there.
And we can absolutely go ahead and look at getting like one of these portable commodes with the hand sanitizing station or whatnot, and have that placed there. And those companies can deliver that there without an issue because of the access from the roadway straight down the trail to it. So we could absolutely, and I'm sure the Rotary Club and the Easley side would not be opposed to that type of thing, especially if we're footing it. So.
Well, that sounds good to me. Can we get something, Mr.
Yes,
Administrator?
we'll look for various options.
Okay.
and we'll get together on that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
The trees are insufficient for Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Rogers.
Well, my wife can't use a tree. and so that's
Some of
the
the areas, I don't know if I trust the tree.
I always go before I ride. Always.
Oh, you'd run.
But sometimes when I get these, I go again.
Yeah, exactly. Jonathan, thank you for everything. I was thinking about you with those floods, that
Oh.
rain.
Yeah, we got a little wet that day.
Yeah.
That's why me and Thomas were out there. And y'all say thank you and whatnot to me, but I have to give credit
Yeah.
where it's due. Our staff on Parks and Recreation, your staff on Parks and Recreation, top notch. They work and they give of themselves, their own time, their own abilities, their own efforts, their own everything to make sure that the job's able to be done and the department goes forward. Thomas was a prime example of that. That day we were out there in the pouring rain and dragging equipment away from the road, or supplies and equipment away from the riverbank, putting up barricades and trying to keep people from being in the areas that were flooded. So we were both changing clothes about 3 times that day because of the rain. So.
Can I ask one dumb question, but I got to know. How is it that you numbered the miles on the Doodle Trail? I mean, it seems like
That
there's
was
something.
pre-me. Now I can give you what I've been told, but
Okay.
that was very much pre-me.
Okay.
They started at the Pickens side with the intent of extending that trail to an alternate location, whether it be J.C. Park or Main Street. From what I was told, the initial intent was to go down East Cedar Rock and then up towards Main Street. Chief Elrod may be able to speak more to what the plan was on that. From what I understand, the master plan from many moons ago that was developed had part of that involved and included in it.
Okay.
The thought of me would be that at the point we realized we weren't going to be able to quickly or able to at all, if that was the decided choice at the time, was to go back and relabel. But that never happened, and there hasn't been any kind of efforts to extend or correct that since.
Yeah, it's too late now. I just wonder who came up with that, because I'm always trying to figure out where are we starting here.
And that's what we'll get calls all the time. But I checked, and that ain't 4 miles in. That's blah, blah, blah. You are correct.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
right, so.
I just had to ask.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. No problem. Anything?
You'll be
Thank you,
posting about, are you taking coaches for baseball and everything that you're registering for?
During registration of any sport is when we'll have coaches sign up.
Coaches sign.
Now, we have had some sports over the past year to where we get to the end of registration and we still need 1 or 2 sports and coaches. We'll start reaching out and drafting coaches at that point. But during registration, anybody that'd like to volunteer to be a coach, that's your opportunity to come in and let us know, and we'll get the paperwork completed. You have to be able to complete and pass a criminal background check, but I don't think any of y'all would have an issue with that. If you can do that, then you can be a coach with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Utility, CWS, Mr. Drew Langston.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'll be brief. I'm sorry I did not have a presentation this evening. The presentation last week at the town hall took up a good bit of my time, and then just kind of got behind on several things. So, but I did want to mention that. I appreciate all of you coming. I thought it was a success. It could have gone much worse than it did, and we had great public feedback. So thankful that y'all were there and supported us there. Yeah, so at the water plant, we're working on a filter there. We have gotten some quotes on fixing that water filter there. We had one quote come in last week that was around $250,000 to fix that one filter. Had a previous quote that was around $63,000, so big difference. But we are trying to do it internally and hope to just be able to have to purchase new media, which we expect to be somewhere around $20,000 to $25,000 that we'll have to put in once we fix it. So we're working on that. All this rain does become problematic at the water plant and the wastewater plant. You get heavy flows at the wastewater plant, you get muddy water at the water plant, but you got a good group of operators that are making sure that everything's taken care of there. I was at the water treatment plant earlier today, and those guys are working hard to make sure the water coming out is of excellent quality. So at the wastewater plant, we replaced a check valve, we reworked a pump, so you've got an extra pump, and we're hitting the rainy season right now, so that's really important that we have extra assets on hand. Reworked some switches for when we lay the ply later this year, and Trey here is been working with Duke Energy on replacing a power supply to one of the lift stations that we have been wrestling with really for 9 months now. And Duke Energy is going to supply it properly, and we're having some folks come in, some electricians, look at upgrading the panel as well. So we hope to have that in working order in the next couple of months. We believe it needs to be reworked. It needs to have some money dumped into it in order to avoid any citations or compliance issues putting wastewater on the ground. So we talked a little bit about SCADA. Councilman Adams there mentioned SCADA. We want to bring SCADA so we have better communication with our lift stations. I mentioned before in a previous meeting that the city at one time dumped a lot of money into their lift stations, and all the hardware is there at the lift stations. I mean, they probably spent $30,000 on each panel. All the hardware is there, but it's not going to a place where we can visualize what is happening, or it's calling out to operators. And so we want to bring a SCADA system in. Really, all that's going to entail is bringing in a decent computer and a setup, and it's not a computer you go to Best Buy and buy. I mean, it'd probably be somewhere, a whole setup would be around $15,000 with licensing and everything, and then about $1,500 per site. We can bring that data to the folks that are out in the field. It will then call out, tell them what the levels in the wet well are. They can troubleshoot. A lot of times we're paying overtime, or we are sending guys out in the middle of the night unnecessarily because the wet wells are calling out when really there's not an issue. Or we had some instances last year where we had to report to DHEC where there was wastewater spilled on the ground because it did not call out as it should. Right. So we want to work on that. Again, that's low-hanging fruit, a lot of rewards that can come from that, and most of that's compliance, and we want to set you all up for success there. So, yeah, other than that, that's kind of been our primary activities at the wastewater plant. And Public Works is working hard, making taps every day, fixing leaks every day. Continue to add a steady stream of taps, and so folks are tapping onto the distribution system, and yeah, we're excited about the direction that you guys are heading. So any questions for me?
What capacity is wastewater at?
Today, I'm not sure. Today, it's probably actually, well, they're permitted for 0.95 MGD, so 950,000 gallons a day. They're permitted to treat. There have been times where the flows have exceeded that. So, but that is very unlikely, and it's when there are, days and days and days of heavy rain. So we have not exceeded the flow permit, but you can imagine what's causing that is, we call it inflow and infiltration. So there's rainwater that will infiltrate the pipes or flow into the pipes, or manholes that may be needing repair, things of that nature, and all of that water will flow into the wastewater treatment plant. And it can be problematic, and mostly just because of volume. So, yeah.
Do we have any camera evaluation?
We do. We cameraed and jetted 18,000 linear feet last year. And so we have a lot of footage for camera, and we have some areas that we kind of could say right now we can draw a circle around and say we would recommend some upgrade projects. We actually, last year we cameraed one. It was so bad we got on it right away. We replaced, it was about maybe 300 feet with ductile iron pipe, so we don't expect there to be any issue there. But that was, sometimes when you're cameraing, you can find one spot, and it's causing a lot of issues everywhere, and if you fix that, and so I think that's really what we found there. But yeah.
So we have capacity to grow with this system we have, with wastewater, not the water side, the wastewater side. Do we have capacity to
Yeah,
I mean, we're
so
doing
we
it that way,
average.
we like it or not, but
Yeah, we average anywhere from 200 to 250,000 gallons, and sometimes it's even lower than that in the dry portions of the year. So the capacity is there. I mean, even the largest and most advanced wastewater treatment plants are going to get overrun by heavy rainfall at times. But as far as a baseline capacity, absolutely, the city had some forethought when they constructed that plant, and it's still there. So, yeah. Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you for the meeting.
Yeah,
That's like-
absolutely.
that's great work.
Thank you so much. And you and Trey, it's hard to believe that big man be getting in dishes the way he does. He has done so much work for us as a city, and I thank you so much, Trey. Thank you both. All right. We have up for discussion, emergency telephone system procurement.
Why don't you pass that down this way? If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times since I've been here over the last 10 days. That especially when things happen with the water system or recreation, that people have had some difficulty getting their telephone calls answered at the city of Pickens. The ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of customer service and local government is that you answer the phone. So that was something that I wanted to address very early because I myself had some difficulty getting the phone answered when I called. And when I found out it's not our people that aren't answering the phone. It's our phone system that doesn't really work. It dumps everything through the 1940s. Mabel, are you there? Everything went through one bottleneck, no matter who you were trying to reach, at what building or what facility, for what purpose. That person might be on the phone, and then nobody's phone call was getting answered. Again, I'll say this is probably due to the turnover in administrators. I did find an email on my desk that started out almost a year ago that our phone system, it was an FCC notification that the provider of our phones was going out of business, which meant that they were going to turn off the servers that run the phones and that all of the phones on our desks would cease to function in 100 days. So this is an emergency. Usually, I would do a procurement, take bids. That could take as long as, 6 months. But what we've done is we reached out to several vendors. The cost of this is not prohibitive. This involves us buying instead of renting the equipment. I'm not a fan of renting technology. So we would actually pay for these devices to actually go on everybody's desk. And it does have a monthly cost of $384.15, which is fairly reasonable. But it will take us light years ahead, and we should have it in place, I think, by mid-February at the latest. This will allow us to put in true phone trees so that people can call and get directed to the people that they need to get to. Another thing in the assessment that we learned was that there are a lot of desks in the city where people would want to talk to somebody that there's no phone. There was never any system set up for that person to have a voicemail or direct contact with the public. So we will actually be adding handsets so that we can directly route calls through to people who should be calling people back. And then I believe that our staff is very concentrated on customer service. This will give them the tool to answer those calls and to get back to people in short order. But until we get this done, we don't have a passing grade on our customer service until those phone calls are answered in some way, shape, or form. And as I said, the current system is going completely off. So I have just wanted to make you aware of it. This is the signed contract from the group that we worked with today. I think the mayor was there for the demonstration, but this, as an emergency, we wanted to go ahead and get it handled and installed and let council know as soon as we could. any questions about what they provide or what the current issues are.
Who are the advanced users versus or like what users are you adding will be getting this that maybe weren't reachable previously?
The difference between advanced users and the basic users are that basically you can control the holiday messages, the scheduling, kind of the phone trees, and I don't know that internally we've decided who's going to be the champion of doing this, but it's basically, you know, when you walk into an office and you see somebody has that extra pad on the side of the phone that they can do some magic with it. I hope that my phone will just be a skinny little phone that I answer, and then I don't have to program the phones. But that's the difference there. So that probably in each of our facilities, over at Public Works, here at City Hall, that each place will have one of the advanced phones to be able to customize what the phones are doing for us.
And like if they had to get in touch with Public Works, say an on-call phone, they'll be able to take to their personal phone.
Yes.
Like if I called in over there with a problem and you had the on-call phone for Public Works and there was a tree laying somewhere, you could be transferred to where it would go to that.
And you can set it up a number of ways. For instance, I'm probably going to set mine up to where it just forwards it to my cell phone, whether I'm sitting there at my desk or not, so I don't ever have to worry about hitting a button. And that's a best practice for me because I never remember to hit the button to tell it to do that.
Right.
So I'm sitting at my desk and it'll ring on my cell phone and my desk. I can pick up either one. But that is an option that this will allow to make sure that people are reachable. But there's all kinds of configurations you could do to where, you know, even if you're, you know, tied up with a meeting or something for half the day, you can have it email you the text of a voicemail that somebody let you. So you can see that and know that you need to get somebody else to respond to that. It's going to just make leaps and bounds improve the customer service.
Who's the technology expert? I mean, we can have training for this person on site? Or
Yes, this vendor, and I've worked a lot with phone systems and I know it pretty well, but this vendor is going to come in and train and work with us very closely.
Okay. And it's fairly easy, I mean, for everyone to learn how to use this system so that...
Yes. I think so. It's
And
very, very capable.
Will they be available to us? I mean, where are they? How are they available?
Where are they physically?
Pretty much out.
Greenwood?
Greenwood?
So not too
So
far.
they provide, like, you know, they'll come here or they'll
Yes.
do something online, whatever they like?
They will come in person.
They'll come in person. It's a fairly large company with lots of trucks and lots of folks, or?
Well, these are internet protocol phones, so they don't need trucks. We just plug it into our internet broadband, and you know, they will come and support us. And I was really impressed with the gentleman who wasn't a salesman, but he's actually a tech, and he was here. But they could actually reach in from Greenwood to any phone we've got and kind of diagnose what the issue is. And, you know, they're an hour down the road, so they could be here.
And is all that covered in this? If we
Yes.
have problems and everything, it's covered in our monthly fee?
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? All right.
All right.
Now we ready? Just go ahead and go down the list.
All right, so another thing, again, about customer service and efficiency. In our building here, our administrative staff, we basically have 3 folks who are up front taking payments, answering phones, or not being able to answer phones, wrestling with the phone system. And one need that we have is a definitive need in the police department. They've got 2 part-time folks who are helping them out, but the legal requirements for record keeping, for evidence storage, and just for contacting people. And again, the police department has customer service responsibilities too, to answer to people. And it's just insufficient what they've got. So in analyzing this, I've asked in my memo that I distributed earlier for an additional administrative person, and everybody on staff, we're all kind of building the team and the culture. Everybody keeps saying, who's that person going to report to? Where are they going? But it's going to be different because I'm going to take, if we get the now 4.5 people with the part-time hours that we have down there, each one of these people is going to rotate and be cross-trained so that any one of those 4 people can serve the police department's needs or my needs or a water customer's needs so that everybody will have the same set of skills. We're not going to bring people in and silo them. We're going to make them mobile so that they can be, and it's called a force multiplier in war, where, you know, if you have a deadline for water payments and you have people out the door, then everybody can be a force multiplier and go up and just take care of that and cut down the wait times. And then if the police department, if everybody is cross-trained well, if they're preparing for a big case and they've got to bring evidence out and records and get things done to help support the police department, then the lion's share of those assets who've been cross-trained now can go there. It's just not efficient to have somebody sitting at, and this isn't saying anything about the employees we have, they haven't been asked to learn these other responsibilities. But it's inefficient for somebody to sit in one spot and be taught that you have one responsibility and you do this. So we want to both expand that group, but give them lots of opportunities to be successful and participate in other aspects of the team, essentially. So that's what I plan to do with that. Any questions around that kind of idea?
So is that something we'll vote on or what?
As far as whether to add,
Make sure we're doing this now, or we're going to vote on this later for later, or what?
well, that would be the addition of the position.
And then I think you might have a problem with, so you'd be thinking, whose budget will that come from? Police or up here? Because if they're working for everybody, then you'll have an issue whose budget that's going to be.
Well, we've already talked about that some of those things we would distribute, that it would be broken, and that actually reinforces what I'm trying to create as far as the team.
I'm kind of looking ahead and thinking, okay, now,
but
bring the questions up a little bit.
Right. To answer your question, as far as the addition of the position, you will vote on that. If there is no position added, that is the system I'm going to use internally with the employees.
I just wanted to make sure that's something we weren't making a decision right now on.
No, just not on the addition of the position.
All right.
So that's the squatting method I will use. At the moment, I have 3 full-time people and 2 part-time. That's what I'm going to start it with. And I think that analyzing it for, what we call dark hours.
I think it's a great idea. It's like a little more, know a little bit more about it. So
right.
Yeah.
And when we have people who are sick, maternity, vacation, they find another job somewhere. Just analyzing it, I think that works to make sure we've always got sufficient.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Okay, and then I think we've talked about the water meter issues. Please. And our plans to include replacements, and we're going to get with Drew and kind of try to scope out some time with some vendors. And then just want to remind council of some upcoming events, just to make sure your calendars are marked. We've got from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Is that the final time? 4 to 6:30 p.m. On the 29th. We have the meet and greet at the library, where all of us will be there to get to know folks and be available for questions and answers, or whatever you want to do. You can bring presents or insults or whatever. And then 6:45 p.m., remember, council, that we are down for a Pickens County Municipal Association dinner in Clemson. So we'll be joining our colleagues from the regional players and try to build some relationships there. That meet and greet, by the way, is at the Pickens branch of the Pickens Library.
You said 4:30, right?
Yes, 4:30 to 6:30. 4 to 6:30, yes.
Okay.
And then on the
And the day of the Clemson was 30.
30th.
30, yes.
And then on, that's January 30th that we're going to go to the Clemson dinner. And then on February 5th, you have the Hometown Legislative Action Day in Columbia. They will all be joining the Municipal Association. Try to make sure our legislators know what we'd like for them to do for us.
Exactly.
So it's coming up here. We have been kicking around dates back and forth for our council and staff retreat, where we're going to get our department heads together with council. That will be the beginning in earnest of our budget year, which the way that we're going to do it this year is each of the department heads is going to have some work to do. But with that, with those duties will come some ability to really play a part in the process. And as we've talked tonight, there are a lot of needs in this community, and the mission of government in a lot of ways boils down to taking scarce resources and distributing them to the most important needs. So that's what we're going to let our department heads weigh in on, and we'll meet several times to come up with a budget proposal to bring back to council. But the point of that retreat is for council to share with staff what your goals and objectives are for the coming year. And our department heads will do the same. And then together, we will come up with a list of what we're going to tackle. So I very much look forward to being able to meet, and we've discussed it's either going to be the 20th or the 22nd, because we've checked those dates with everybody. And now our next step is we envision doing this next door at the County Museum. So we're going to check and see about availability for that. We'll start lunchtime, serve some lunch, and then work through the afternoon.
Sounds good.
That's February, right?
Yes, that is
20th or
February
22nd?
20th or 22nd.
Oh, I'll know tomorrow. I'll drive to see you.
And if it's the 20th, I'll take gift cards, because that's my birthday.
Well, Mr. Mayor, that is, and it's been a lot. But
It's been a lot, but we
that's
covered
what
a
I have
lot.
for you tonight.
And I want to thank you for the business that we were able to conduct, the questions that were asked. I think we're moving in a good, positive direction. No question is too dumb. The dumb person doesn't ask questions. I just thank you all for being a part of this. And just be prepared, you're going to have to buy a new fire truck pretty soon.
Can we get back to
And all right, see,
bathrooms at the amphitheater?
We-
Cheaper than fire truck.
Mayor, can I?
well, we need that fire truck. We'll think about that. Yes, sir.
I have asked, just bring up one thing. I mean, several of us brought up to the community that we were going to try to find at least a location where we could meet outside of this building in the event we think we're going to have a large crowd at least.
Right.
Do we have any thoughts on that yet, or?
We do.
Okay.
We're working on it.
You're working on it?
More soon.
All right, good, because we promised the folks, you know what I mean? So we
Yes.
want to make sure that can happen.
No, it's going to happen.
Diligently
We just got to make sure we find a good place that's going to be able to serve us in a good, positive way.
Right.
I'm going to put it
I
that way.
agree.
Yeah.
And the administrator, you're working on that one too? Is that your?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Indeed.
Good.
Yeah, I'm up here every day. We work together on a lot of things.
He tries to slow me down. He's like, don't just rush in. So, well,
Okay,
yes,
good.
we're on it.
I just wanted to bring that up because I know that was promised to a lot of folks. And we want some bathrooms for the people too, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
A chicken in every pot and a bathroom in every corner.
Okay,
We're all about it.
thank you.
He's worried about
Thank you
those
very much.
bathrooms.
Yeah.
Doodle trail and.
That's right.
Does anybody have anything else like that? Any other?
Do we need action on the emergency procurement? Do we need a vote on that?
Now, there's there are budgeted funds. I just wanted to make sure to let you know what we were doing.
Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
I say,
It's been properly moved in second. All in favor, raise your right hand. I got worried right there. I thought you wanted to
I
stay.
did.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
That's it, Donna.